Good afternoon. Welcome to the January 3rd, 2023 Glens Falls Planning Board meeting. First meeting of 2023. I'm going to start the agenda this afternoon by the review and possible approval of the minutes from the December 6th meeting. Start with Art. Do you have any questions on the minutes from that meeting? Dan?
No.
Karen?
No.
You? Bridget?
No.
Nothing from myself either. Then I would make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from December 6th as presented. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? All good with that. Very good. The first item on our agenda today is old business, which is site plan review 220018 and architectural review 220015 for Elizabeth Miller. I'll read the applications in and go from there. It is pursuant to City Code Section 220-19C, subsection 6, Elizabeth Miller, owner of tax map number 309.28-4-3, commonly known as 126 Glen Street, is seeking site plan and architectural review for a new use as well as proposed changes to the front entryway. Would you like to join us? I know you were here in December and spoke to us about the project, and I know you've had some modifications to the project since then, so.
Yes, sir. We just kind of, do I need to do anything? We just kind of changed the format of the front of the building. As you can see, I hope, we decided not to go with a ramp, but to kind of replicate the historic frontage with the way the building was originally, since the ramp is actually underneath the current floor. Do you want to speak to that?
In full disclosure, I did meet with Matt after our last meeting, and
Okay.
when you found the ramp.
Oh.
So I have been at the site and walked
Oh.
through it with him,
Oh, good.
so that everybody's aware of that.
Would you like to speak to that?
It seems like the best way to go about this, taking up the room, looks and function. So
And
it
not
seems-
having to go outside the front of the
Yeah.
building.
Right.
Anything else you'd like to add to that?
That's it.
Hoping to make it historically correct.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this application? Seeing none, I will start with Mr. Brown, our architectural consultant.
I have no comments on site plan review.
As far as architecture, I'm running them both together.
Okay.
So I'll let you comment on both.
My only question was, on the elevations, there's a paneling above the main windows, and wondered what is that material?
It's actually glass. It's a type
Okay.
of, almost like a stained glass, but it's not really colored. We're hoping to keep that the way it originally is. The way,
Okay.
just keep that.
That's the existing
Yeah.
part that's above.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
You're just
Yep.
replacing from there down.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have the old picture there, the original picture? That-
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my only question. In addition to the color questions, what kind of
Yeah.
colors?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they gave us a catalog cut on that that shows us the colors and that kind of stuff, so.
We're trying to put, the people that did the glass at Park and Elm will also do the glass for the interior lobby way as well, so it'll all match.
Good.
Yeah,
Excellent.
good.
All good with that?
Yeah.
Ms. Andrews, I'll start with you.
I only had a question about exterior lighting, and it was likely that it was on there, I just couldn't see it because it's so minuscule.
Uh-huh.
Exterior lighting.
There really isn't any exterior lighting on the building. The only lighting right inside the building is the original that kind of floats down over the part that you mentioned, like the stained glass area. There's light that comes down that way. On the exterior building, on the exterior building on the rear of the building, there'll be lights to replicate whatever's there, only newer. But on the front, there really isn't. There'll be a light inside the lobby area where the glass interior comes in, but nothing really on the exterior of the building. There isn't any.
And signage?
just what they've got shown in the window, right?
Yeah, I don't.
Just what's in the window.
I'm thinking when Mr. Shaw eventually gets going with this whole thing, that he'll present what signage he wants. That's another whole, I would.
That's another whole wall of
I
action, you're
would-
just dealing with the front entryway right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what, okay,
Yeah.
we'll leave it at that then. I
Yeah,
didn't realize.
good idea,
Okay.
yeah.
Good, good.
That's it? Bridget?
I like the change in ramp, I will say. So, no, yeah, that's it. I'm happy that you can fix that. and not
Try to make it as
Yeah.
historically accurate as we
Yeah.
can, yeah.
Absolutely.
All good? Ms. Bell?
No, just in the old picture here, the black and white, there's like a pre-existing step there, that old step, so that's no longer there.
Right,
All right, so that makes it great for everybody.
yep,
Looks nice and it saves you a whole step and
yep.
a bunch of problems. I
Yep.
really don't see any issues.
Thanks, Artie.
Yeah, I don't either. Like I said, I did meet with Matt after our last meeting. I got a call from him and he said, hey, we opened up the floor to start looking at this. We found the old ramp is in there.
Yeah,
So I went over and met with him. He was, the question was, would that be more amenable? And absolutely. And I do thank you for going forward and looking at that and having Matt dig it out and find it. So I think it's a great solution. Solves the problem of you having to get any kind of, permanent easement on the city property,
Yeah.
permanent,
Well, it
going
just
through all that.
makes it cleaner too, I
It
think.
makes it a whole lot cleaner
Yeah.
and makes it easier on everybody's part.
Yeah,
So, with that being said, I think that I would make a motion that,
Want to do seeker?
oh, you get to do seeker first,
Yep.
don't we?
With
I
respect to
forgot about
seeker, I would classify it as a type 2, as its replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility on the same site and does not exceed any threshold, therefore no further action is required.
That's why I forgot about it. So then I would make a motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Architectural and Site Plan Review, hereby grants architectural and site plan approval for the project identified as Elizabeth Miller, owner of tax map number 309.28-4-3, commonly known as 26 Glen Street.
126.
I'm sorry, 126 Glen Street, as presented at the meeting of 3 January 2023. Second, all in favor? Any opposed? You're all set.
thanks very much.
Thank you very much, I appreciate your time, Brian.
This is only for
That is just for the facade.
facade, maybe the.
Thank you.
All right, on to new business. I'm gonna run these concurrently as well. New business is site plan review 23001 and architectural review 23001 pursuant to the city code chapters 220-20 C and D, subsections 12, 15, and 18. Laura Carazone, owner of tax map number 303.17-13-23, commonly known as 178 to 180 Maple Street, is seeking site plan and architectural review for the approval of a change of use and renovations, including the installation of rooftop solar panels at that location. Is there anybody here representing this application? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Andy Allison with AJ Architecture and Planning. In full disclosure, Laura and I are married as well. So, she's my boss. Laura purchased this building at the end of last year, literally at the end of last year. And we're hoping to renovate it into a mixed-use property with a few apartments upstairs in the third floor. Probably moving my office into the second floor and maybe creating some gallery space, and then using the lower level, which is a full basement with really nice light, for another office type space. And there's currently some warehousing down there that we would keep there. We're hoping to run the project through the New York Restore Grant to help fund the project so that we can keep the rental rates below market level, kind of as a startup for that end of town. So that's kind of the project. You want to just go to the next slide? And, you know, I know the building has been in front of you previously with the person that we bought it from, who
Yes.
I actually consulted with early on in his project.
Sure.
We're a little less intense on the amount of, you know, apartments because we're keeping the ground floor for office space. We're really proposing limited changes to the building and the site. The main change is really going to be on the exterior. With the upper row of windows, you can see they're quite high. They're about 7.5, 8 feet off the ground. So to make those compliant with apartments, we would lower those sills but keep the historic character, and we did some renditions in the packet for you on that. The ground floor windows on the Cooper Street side, we would do the same thing there just to get more light into those office spaces as well. There is a little garage space that sits on the right-hand side there. You can see that kind of on the east side of the building. We're proposing to keep that garage. It's currently used as a 6-car garage, 3 wide, 2 deep, so it's quite nice. We're proposing to use that as a 3-car garage, knowing that you can't really park people in. For apartment tenants upstairs, you can pay for that. And then the back parking lot, which is currently gravel, we're gonna stripe that, and we'll get about 6 or 7 parking spaces there. There is an easement that comes with the property over the property to the east, where we can do a little more overflow parking if needed, but for right now, that's just gonna be planned to be used for snow plowing and things like that. Kathy, can you go next? That's all right. Yeah, so that's the development plan, if you will. We will pave the back parking lot. Part of the project is to install geothermal heating and cooling for this, so we can kind of get this thing near net zero. It's not going to be net zero, but it's going to be near. And we're going to use the back lot for the wells. We'll probably also put in some dry wells there just to deal with, there is some ponding that goes on there, so to get that off and not push that out into the street. The driveway that comes off of Maple, we're going to repave that just to improve it, and there'll probably be 2 or 3 geo wells in that space as well. And then you can see the rooftop solar and a small rooftop patio that we're talking about on the Maple Street side. And then if you can go to the elevations. Yeah. Maybe go to the next one, because really the Maple Street side doesn't change. This is the substantive change on Cooper Street, where you can see all the windows on the upper level now are much larger. We're kind of mimicking what's going on at the shirt factory in terms of the window patterning, because the whole district there sort of has that historic feel. And I think if there's one more slide there, Kathy, you'll see the comparative. Yeah, just keep going down. And that's kind of the side-by-side of existing to proposed. We will be putting some lighting on the outside of the building. It'll all be dark sky. We haven't completely figured out where or when, but we're not going to light this thing up like some of the downtown buildings. We have installed some security lighting on there since we bought the building. But if anything, we might light those, you know, a pillar or 2 there with some downcast lighting along the edges. That'd probably be about the amount of it. And we would have to come back to you for signage at some point when we figure out who's going to be in the building and what that would look like. Yeah, tennis signage.
And ultimately, as long as the signage meets the requirement of the signage code, you don't have to come back to us if you meet the requirements of the
Right.
sign code. So, I mean, you are allowed signage. You do have 2 frontages, so.
Yeah, it'll be minimal at best.
Right.
It's not part of the plan to have it be a billboard. So,
Right.
yeah, that's kind of the project in whole.
Okay, excellent. Is there anyone from the public here that would like to speak on this project? Jeff is anticipatory. Jeff can't come to a meeting and not say something.
That's right, since I'm here. Yeah, I just want to mention very briefly that the city is strongly in favor of this project to the extent that we have, the city council is pursuing a Restore New York grant through Empire State Development for the restoration and rehabilitation of this program. So just so you're aware of the city's sort of position and interest, in, especially in central of the first ward, which we're looking at as an area that needs attention. Thanks.
Thank Thank you very much. Anybody else? No other takers? I will start with Mr. Brown, our architectural consultant then.
I have really no questions except for, again, the colors that will be used on the exterior. I wanted to compliment the applicant on the quality of the submittal. It was very easy to interpret it and understand it, and I think we all appreciate that.
I think that I think on one of your drawings here, you show some exterior siding, aluminum clad fiberglass replacement windows, shows the color for that, and then you do show the LP Smart side.
Yeah, so Kat, can you go back to the drawing elevations? And it's interesting, I have to show you this in elevation because you can't see these areas from the street. That one's fine. So if you look at that upper drawing on the back right-hand side, that's the current freight elevator tower, which is going to remain. We're putting a new elevator in, passenger elevator. That will get re-sided in LP Smart side with the color that we showed. And then we are doing a new stair tower that will go up through the roof to access the rooftop patio. That'll also get clad in that same finish. And then the windows, the replacement windows, were supposed to be the Marvin color, which just got canceled last week, so we're still going to get that color.
And honestly, just looking at the pictures that have been taken, you really got to be a long ways away from this building to see the stuff that's up on the roof.
Yeah, you can't see it. The back stair elevator you can see if you're at
When you're coming
at
down Cooper
Mahoney's,
Street,
you know, yeah, but
when you're coming down Cooper, you can see it on the left.
yeah.
Okay. Mr. Brown, anything else?
No, good.
That's all with you. I'll start with Mr. Belton.
Hey, just a couple things. You have it drawn out here, there's the rooftop patio going up there. on the
Correct,
roof.
yep.
Is the new elevator gonna go up to access?
No, the elevator will service the third floor. So we're putting a second set of stairs in the building. Right now, there's only one set of stairs out of the second floor. By code, we actually can leave it that way, but we're putting a second one in just for safety. That set of stairs is gonna go to the roof. So you'll only be able to access the roof by stair.
So that's just tenants go up there, it won't be ADA,
Right.
okay. And then the other one, the solar panels, what will be like the finished height above the building?
So there's a 30-inch parapet that runs around the roof, and
Right.
the solar panels are gonna sit flat.
Oh,
So you won't be able to see those, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then, parking, you said before, like, there was, like 3 cars in the garage, and then 6 to 8 in the back.
Yeah, we have, can you go to the, back up 2 slides, I think.
Yes. So he's got.
That slide right there, yeah. So we can fit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7, 6 in the back. There's currently space on the Maple Street driveway for 3 striped parallel parking spots, and then there will be 3 inside the garage. So the total is 12, yeah.
And there's gonna be a business and apartments in there?
The upstairs will have either 4 or 5 apartments, and the businesses will be professional offices, so there's no retail. You don't have a lot of traffic.
And you do have on-street parking on Maple and.
Maple north side in front of the railroad building is really good.
Yep.
Cooper, you're allowed to park there. But west side is about as good as it can get.
When the shirt factory is having their, food truck trucks and stuff, it gets very congested over there.
Yeah.
But people do park on both sides of the street.
Yeah, I think Cooper, you're not allowed to on the east side by city code. Technically. West side, you're allowed to. Maple Street, north side, you can. Yeah, and Maple Street has a lot of parking. People park there all the time, so
Yep.
they're pretty used to it.
I think that's pretty much it for me, it looks great. It'll be a good addition to the city.
We hope so.
Ms. Goldman?
No questions. I'm excited for this project. I'm excited for this building to be turned into this, and I'm also really excited about solar panels and all that, everything that you guys are proposing.
Good.
It's gonna be good.
Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, the same, I had the same question about the solar panels and the patio, but, you know, it's 30-inch precipice, so that's well set, right? And that's it, that was I live over in the first floor, so I'm glad to see the building in use.
Oh, good, great. Yeah, we're excited about it. We couldn't be happier to have that thing, so,
I love the idea of the bigger windows, that's great, that'll be a really nice touch.
yeah, good.
That's it?
That's good.
Andy, you have-
I just wanted to go back to one thing. My question with the solar panels, which we like this building, I think we all kind of agree on, and to see it get revitalized and updated and used. It was just wondering about how far they were gonna be up above that. Just, you know, God bless you for doing the solar and keeping it like that, where we don't have that look in the city right now. And,
Yeah.
you know, I thank you for doing that. I think
Yeah,
it's,
I mean, it's kind of like Shirt Factory, they have solar panels up there and you can't really see them unless you're on Google Earth,
Right,
so,
or on the roof.
yeah.
Andy, the only questions I have, the loading dock that's on the Cooper Street, on the back side of the building, that's coming off?
Yeah, we're tearing that off,
That's,
yeah.
you're not gonna have to work very hard to get that off.
No,
And then on the side, on the Maple Street side where you're pulling in, there's a canopy that's over that kind of stair that goes into the basement. Is that gonna get rebuilt? or-
we're tearing that off and we're moving it 2 bays closer to the garage.
Okay, so it's moving back.
Yeah.
And that moves the stair back as well?
Yeah, we're only doing stairs there, we're not doing a ramp. That's
Right.
probably the other thing. In the backside, on the north side of the building, off the parking lot,
Yep.
the elevator is, the building that sits about 4.5 feet off the ground.
Mm.
So we're creating a mid-level floor, so the elevator will come down
To that.
and we'll have an entrance door on grade.
Yeah.
So you're not dealing with an exterior ramp, you can just walk right in and go into
Access.
the elevator and go up half a flight and then into the building, yeah.
And the residents would go right up rather than go through the business.
Yeah, it's kind of the reason we have the elevator and the stairwell on the north side, and then the existing stairwell that serves all the other floors is in the middle of the building. The residents will basically use the back entrance, and the businesses will use kind of the side entrance there, so.
Will the parking that's in the back be available to the people that are working in the building during the day, or
We
how do you see?
probably will designate some of those for the residential apartments, and then whatever's left will be for, you know, people who work in the building, or they'll use street parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you mentioned an easement for that section where the snow is gonna go. Is that currently in your possession or not?
Yeah, that's part of the legal ownership of the property.
It is,
Yeah.
it is, okay.
It's a right of use easement
Yeah.
for additional parking or plowing or whatever.
Yeah, and that was discussed when Margaret was
Yeah.
taking
Oh,
that project
okay.
as well.
Yeah.
But I know we went through a fair amount of that, so. Good. I think those were the only questions that I had. Nobody else has anything else? I'll turn it over to Karen for the speaker.
With respect to seeker, I would again classify it as a type 2 replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind on the same site, including upgrading building to meet building, energy, or fire codes, and it does not exceed any thresholds. Therefore, no further action is required.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have anything that they would like to add on? Then I will go ahead and make the motion that the Glens Falls Planning Board, acting as the Board of Architectural and Site Plan Review, hereby grants architectural and site plan approval for the project identified as Laura Carazone, owner of tax map number 303.17-13-23, commonly known as 178 to 180 Maple Street, as presented at the meeting of 3 January 2023, with no conditions or amendments. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We're all good. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Ethan?
With that being said, I think Ms. Hamlin wants to
Well,
speak to this.
speak to you before your applicant leaves, because I'm just wondering.
Kathy Hamlin, Zoning and Planning Coordinator. I'm just wondering, Mr. Brown, this is receiving some public funds. I just don't want to see something come down the pike. Will this require a SHPO sign-off? If it does get this restored New York
Don't
funding?
think this is in the historic district.
Oh, okay, so,
I checked.
It's not.
oh, okay.
So
And
it's not,
the
it's
building
not.
is not listed.
I just don't want to hear about it
It's
3 months
not,
from
not in
now.
the historic district, and it's not a listed building, therefore,
Nope, okay,
It's
good.
no
Just-
discussed in
just-
an old report, but nothing.
But nothing ever came from it.
Yeah, I
As I
just didn't want to
remember
see
it-
it come up at a later date.
Nope, Mr. Moriarty's project was the same question was asked.
Oh, okay, great, I just wanted to cover that. So since I'm standing here anyway, there were questions about training. I was gonna kind of talk about some things tonight, but I guess we don't have a full board, and I actually didn't have time to get a little presentation together for you. Basically, what I talked to the ZBA about the last time I talked to them at their last meeting was, looking at ways to update applications and other things to streamline the process a little bit. And definitely, you guys need to review and approve in some capacity, and then it does actually then need to go in, just because they're outside of the code, they do need to go to the county council for at least a resolution, right, Karen? I'm pretty sure, yeah.
If you're making new applications, so the planning board would approve the proposed application, and then a resolution would be passed by the common council to accept the new forms to be used by the planning and the zoning.
Now, should it go to buildings and codes subcommittee, or just as a courtesy possibly?
I think it would be addressed at the subcommittee. And
Okay.
then the chairman of that committee could bring the resolution to the common council.
Exactly. All right, thank you. So things like, I think Ethan and I, he was in my office one time and I mentioned, like you just did tonight, it would be nice to have an application that would lay out the site plan requirements and then maybe check a box that says, and also architectural review. So they don't have to repeat a lot of the information, sort of bring that architectural review right into the site plan application. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, Mr. Brown and the board spent a fair amount of time on the architectural review checklist. It's fairly comprehensive.
oh, but the checklist can remain, I'm just talking about, well, for one thing, the application has basically got the building permit inside it.
Right.
Which I think can tend to confuse people.
Yep.
That they may think, oh,
I have a
I
building
already got my
permit.
building permit, yes, so
It
somehow.
should be, we've discussed that for quite some time, that the site plan and architectural review application should be standalone, and but the way things have always operated with us, or with the city, is that because of, a newly shown position,
Yeah,
it's always been the responsibility of buildings and codes to do both planning and zoning and buildings and codes. So it's always fallen upon the code enforcement officer to do that, and it's just been easier. Like I said, I started in 1999, and it was that way when I started.
yeah,
So here we are 20-some years later, and it's still going on like that. So I think that, certainly an overhaul of our applications and stuff is
just,
certainly.
if anything, just
Yes.
things that aren't scanned in and sideways.
Yeah.
And just
one that says-
aesthetically as well as,
And if you read the page numbers at the bottom where it says
Yeah.
page 1 of 2, page 2 of 2, and then page 3 of 2.
yeah. And believe it or not, you run a spell check on that checklist, and I don't know what went wrong, but there's some major
Yeah.
issues. So, yeah, so it not just cleaning them up, but there's a way to just, one thing said swamps, how about we call them wetlands? I mean, would they modernize the language a little bit like that? Because like you said, it's been 20 years. So that was all I had, and somebody had questions about training, or no?
Page 3 of 2.
Did Ethan, did you say somebody still had questions about training, or maybe they're not here?
No, I know that Kim had asked me a question about if going to the one in Saratoga would be covered by the city as far as being reimbursed for it.
The mayor has asked to have that put on the county council agenda to just make sure that the resources are there. It's not expensive. I think he's very amenable, but he's gotta bring it to the board.
Yeah.
Um,
So, along those lines, as I said, this has never been brought up to this board in the amount of time that I've been here. I don't.
Well, as a
think it's-
former land use training specialist, I guess that is sort of something that I promote a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I understood. Again, in 20 years, I think I've gone to 3 classes for this.
Yeah,
So it's, it's one of
and
those things.
you could use your architectural,
And that's the thing, I have
credits,
to do
yes.
12 hours of continuing education a year, so.
And I'm sure those overlap with planning and anybody else that does that. I mean, technically speaking, according to the statute, the city could say, well, you know, it's an inconvenience, or they can make up a reason why you don't have to do it in a resolution and eliminate that need. But you're hard pressed to really come up with a good reason, because it's 4 hours, and most places like DOS is free, so.
Okay.
So that's all I had, and I keep you guys apprised of what we're doing with the applications. I'm not trying to do anything like, you know, wholesale, you know, read about the whole thing, but, you know, just having worked across the state with a multiple number of communities, I see what they do, and maybe it's not bad to look outside your own purview for a little while, or beyond the 20 years or whatever, and things do change and evolve, so something to get it a little easier for the applicants and me and you.
Yeah, well, it's definitely something that needs to be looked at, so
Yeah.
now we have somebody
Little
that
less
sit there and
confusing.
look
Yeah.
at it and go through it, I think it'll be.
I will, and I'm finding the time now, finally, I think. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thanks. I think that's it. Anybody got anything else?
I think, you know, not letting go of that for a second, many municipalities have a planning department. The city has never had a planning department. And so, and they really needed to do master plans and so forth and get things through. And so it's been a little bit of a black hole.
It has been.
Accomplish even what we did.
It has been for quite some time, and the last revision to this zoning code was March of 2004.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay?
And we did all those checklists in a way.
Yep, and we did all that stuff in a way, so.
That was huge.
Yeah, and I have spoken with the mayor about, you know, the need to have our zoning code updated.
Yeah.
So there has been some discussions on it. I don't know how far it'll go, but we have discussed it, so.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that at some point down the road, we will have to address again. We do have that recommendation that we have made, you know, to the common council, so. I think that's
Coincidentally, one of the 4 sessions or 5 sessions at the Saratoga training is on comprehensive planning. And that was one of the ones I thought would be an interesting one to go to, knowing that it's a good idea generally, but like, for it to happen is such a long, big, engaging project that I don't know if it's.
And it's, I've been to those conferences that you're talking about, and you're gonna get such a quick brush through of it, that it's, I mean, in order to look at comprehensive planning, you could take, you know, a week's worth of those courses and go through them, and it's still not gonna get terribly in depth. When you go to these, they're very, you know, they for our level of what we would be doing, they don't go into a lot of depth and a lot of the stuff. They just kind of touch on the different areas. So.
There was a time when they were a little lengthier, but the conferences in particular have been cutting down the time. And some of the people are a little afraid to get rid of some of the content. And a lot of rudimental stuff in the beginning, so you're like, okay, I know this already.
Yeah.
By the time you get to the meat, you're kind of like.
That's what I found in a couple of them that I've gone to. It's like, you go to them and it's like they tell you stuff you already know. It's like,
Because so many, they gear it towards the new members.
Right.
The ones that seem to be the training most.
yeah.
They work on advance, but people don't ask for it. So,
Right.
you know. Anyway.
All right, I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening. All in favor? Thank you very much.